Okay, this is for Katie and Tate, 6th period. We're recording 8th period, so bear with me here. 3-5 is completing the square. Completing the square. Romeo, put that away, please. That. Shut it. Shut it. Or put it on the floor. No, floor.
I can't close
now.
it. I can't close it.
All right, you can do it after school. That's fine too. Okay, great. Great. Put it on the floor. All right, 3-5. You guys have a worksheet for this homework assignment? And 3-5 is solving quadratic equations. Okay, so let's underline the word quadratic. And let's talk about what those are here just for a second. Quadratics are y equals x squared. That's what a quadratic function looks like, right? And if I graph one, it is a parabola. Now, it could be upside down, but we're just going to talk about just regular old parabolas that look like that. And we are solving this thing, okay? So on the graph, what does a solution look like? What am I looking for as far as a solution goes?
Anything on the line.
The x value.
The x-intercepts. I'm looking for these. That's what I'm trying to find the whole time, okay? In section 3-4. In section 3-4, we did that by factoring. And there was 4 factoring methods, okay, that we learned. And one of them was the greatest common factor. The second one was the difference of squares. The third one was a simple trinomial, and the fourth one was a complex trinomial. We did those things, but ultimately, we were trying to find the places where they cross, right? That's ultimately what we were trying to find, those 2 answers. Sometimes you would only get 1 answer, right? But those 2 places where he crosses, we're doing that, okay? But sometimes your equation is so ugly, not really ugly, but sometimes it's ugly enough that none of these work, okay? So sometimes these don't work right here. Any one of those. None of them work. So what we do is we default to something called completing the square, okay? Completing the square. I have a poster up there right next to my lion poster, my Lion King poster. Off to the side, that big poster that has the pencil on it, it has completing the square in the bottom right corner of that poster, okay? This is the steps to completing the square, all right? But before we complete the square, they're going to really baby step us into this, okay? We're not going to complete the square quite yet. In example 1, they just say use the square root property, okay? Here's what the square root property says, all right? We're trying to break this thing down, and we're using something called the square root property. Typically, what we want to do is we want to move this 36 to this side so that we have them equal to 0. When you're completing the square, that is the only time you don't do that, okay? We want to leave the 36 where it is and leave it alone, okay? What we're going to focus on, though, is this left side, and this left side is a simple trinomial, right? Okay, and we're going to try to break him down. So we're going to try to find the number that you multiply together to give you 9, but when you add them, give you 6. Okay, and we're going to break him down into our 2 bubbles, right? And Josie says 3. So x plus 3 and x plus 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 plus 3 is 6. Agreed? Okay, equals 36. He's just going to chill for a little bit, right? We're just breaking that left side down, all right? Now, did you know that x plus 3 times x plus 3 can be written a different way?
X plus 3 squared.
X plus 3 squared. That's how we're going to write him next, okay? This is called the square root property, all right? Now we have him squared, and now what we're trying to solve for is this x in here, right? We're trying to get that x by itself. So how do I get rid of this square? You take the square root. The opposite of square is square root, right? You take the square root and you take the square root, okay? Now, the square root of something squared, this x plus 3 is just going to come out, right? The square root of something squared, that stuff in the middle just falls out. And then we have the square root of 36. Kind
Plus
of.
and minus 6.
It's plus and minus 6, okay? Now, every time we take a square root going forward, no more excuses. Anytime we take a square root and we insert the square root in there, it always has to have a plus and a minus in front of it because 6 times 6 is 36, but negative 6 times negative 6 is also 36. So we need to have a plus and minus in front of there, okay? Now, last thing, to solve for x, we have to get rid of that 3. So we subtract the 3 over to the other side.
Plus or minus 9.
Now, not necessarily true. Really,
You have to add it and
really, we have 2 answers, and they are positive 6 minus 3 and negative 6 minus 3, which is not the same thing as plus and minus 9, right? Not the same thing.
Yeah.
What is positive 6 minus 3?
3.
3, and what's negative 6 minus 3? Negative 9. And those are the two places where my parabola is going to cross, right? Positive 3, negative 9, not drawn to scale. Don't look at my thing. But that's what we're finding, right? That's what we're finding is those two places. Good?
I think your graph is backwards.
Yeah, my graph is not very good. Anyway, whatever. Okay, the next one is the same thing again. We're still doing that square root property, right?
Hang on.
So, okay.
Why are you so slow?
She's fine. She's fine. Okay, we're going to do the square root property again, which means we're just going to leave. We're not going to try to combine the 25 and the 27. We're going to leave them as they are, all right? So here's where my equal sign is, and I'm going to look at this piece, and he's a simple trinomial. So I'm going to try to break him down. So I'm going to multiply to get 25, and I add them to get negative 10. Reese has got it figured out.
Negative 5.
X minus 5 and x minus 5. And you will notice that every single time you do this, it ends up being the same, right? So that I can write it as x minus 5 squared, right? I want to be able to write it like that, okay? Equals, though, 27. That's 27 on that side, all right? Now, the difference between this problem and the problem before this is that when we take the square root, what happens to the square root of 27?
It's not even.
It doesn't come out nicely, right? It doesn't come out nicely, okay? So we just leave it as the square root of 27, but it needs to have plus and minus, right? Because we still put the square root in there. So it needs to have plus and minus 27. What happens to the x minus 5?
You add 5.
It just stays x minus 5, right? Because that square root and that square root cancel out, right? So x minus 5, there's what that is, okay? Then last thing, you add the 5 over. Add the 5. Okay, now, can you add the 5 to the 27?
No.
No. Okay, so, ready for this? There are two different ways of writing your answer. Here we go. You can say x is equal to, you can say plus and minus the square root of 27, and then plus 5, or
5.
you can write it as 5 plus and minus the square root of 27. You know which way I like the best?
5 plus or minus.
This one. I like this one better because, kind of for the same way I like the eyes in the front. 27. That's what I mean. Boop, boop, boop. 27.
That's fine.
Kind of for the same way I like the eyes maybe in the front better because sometimes my little bar up here gets a little long. And I don't know if the 5 is underneath or outside. Okay. So, 5 plus and minus the square root of 27. Now, I want you to leave your answer like this when it doesn't come out nicely. I want you to leave your answer like this. But, just so that we're clear, this means 5 plus the square root of 27 and 5 minus the square root of 27. If you plug those into your calculator, you get something like 10.2, and I don't remember what the other one was. 5 minus the square root of 27. Oh, I just had it. Go back.
It's 0.2.
Negative 0.2. Yeah, there we go. So we still have two places where he's crossing. It's just at decimal numbers, right? Does that make sense? Okay. So you're going to leave your answer as 5 plus and minus the square root of 27, but it's two decimals, right? All right, now we're gonna do one more step. We're almost gonna complete the square. Almost.
So you don't want this to simplify at all.
No, not if it doesn't come out nicely. Like up here, we did the square root of 36, and that did come out nicely. So you can just leave it as the square root of 27. Technically, the square root of 27 is 3 square roots of 3. So if you want to do that, you can. But I'm not going to force you to do that because you're already doing like a ton of steps anyway. I don't want to add one more thing to you. But if you want to simplify it as 3 square roots of 3, that's fine. I don't care. Happy with that? Okay, we're almost going to complete the square in this next one. Almost. They're going to give us another thing that they want us to do. All right, you ready? They want us to solve for C so that this thing is a perfect square. All right? This is very easy to do. Watch this, okay? This is a trinomial. It's a simple trinomial, and what I want to do is I want to be able to break this thing down into two pieces so that eventually I can get it to a point where I write it as something squared, right? Kind of like what we did above. So I don't know what this number C is, but I do know that what I get has to multiply to give me C, but when I add them, gives me 16, all right? Now, there are many combinations that will add together to give you 16, like 1 and 15, or 2 and 14, or 3 and 13, but
Divide the middle one by 2.
what I want to have happen is those two numbers must be the same number, right? So what number is the same number that adds to be 16? Adds to be 16.
8.
8. So I want to have x plus 8 and x plus 8. Okay? So eventually I can write that as x plus 8 squared, right? X plus 8 squared. Okay? Now, if that's x plus 8 squared, what will the c value be? 64. How did you get that? 8 times 8 is 64. So c will be 64. And in this step, in this example, they wanted two answers. And I have them circled. They wanted us to find the value of c and then write the trinomial as a perfect square. That's this part. So they want both of those pieces. That's the two answers that they want. Does that make sense? Okay? We're almost to completing the square. This next problem, we're going to actually complete the square. Okay? And completing the square is going to involve what we did here with what we did up here. Good? We're going to put both of those things together and we're going to combine them. What's up, Josie?
So it's 64 because you took x plus 8 squared.
Right. So
wouldn't it
like
be
like
x
like when
plus
we
64?
okay, so here's the deal. When we try to figure out what these two pieces are, right? We know that this number, those two numbers multiplied together have to give me this number, but when I add those two numbers, have to give me this 16, right?
Okay.
Does that make sense? So
Yep.
that's why the C is 64. Yeah? Good?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Okay, now we're going to do full-blown completing the square. And I'm going to give you 4 steps, and you're going to do those 4 steps every single time. And the more you do it, the more problems you solve with completing the square, the easier it's going to be. Okay? So you'll be able to do it like lickety-split. All right, step number 1. What?
Paper from the book, or do we get
Worksheet.
I gave you a worksheet.
a?
Okay, number 1. Step number 1 is to put the x's, put x's one side and numbers other side. That's step number 1. Put the x's on one side, the numbers on the other side. All right, this is the only time you ever do this, is when you're completing the square. Usually I want the thing equal to 0, but I'm going to put the x's on one side, the numbers on the other. So what needs to be moved?
Plus 11.
Plus 11. I'm going to add the 11 to the other side, right? Plus 11, okay? So that gets rid of him over here. And I'm going to do x squared plus 10x, and I want you to leave a little space, because we're going to fill that space here in a second with whatever the c value is.
X squared equals.
Okay? Equals 11, right? That's what we're going to do. So we're moved the 11 to the other side. Any questions what we just did? That was step number 1. Step number 2 is find C. Step number 2 is find C, and we want to add it to both
5.
sides. Okay, we want to find C and add it to both sides. Okay, so now hold on. Not quite 5, Josie. Hold on just a second. We want to figure out what this C value is right here, what we're adding to both sides. So I'm going to break him down. And I don't know what C is, but I do know that what this number multiplied
5 and 5.
together have to give me, and it has to add to be 10. So 10 could be 1 and 9 or 2 and 8, but it has to be the same number. So it has to be 5 and 5. And okay, so then we can write it as x plus 5 squared. Agreed?
Yeah.
Okay? But if that's the case, then what will this C value be right here? What do I have to put in that blank?
25.
25, right? Because 5 times 5 is 25. 25 goes here. Now, the problem with doing that is if I add 25 to the left side,
You have to add 25 to the other side.
I have to add 25 to the other side, right? So I have to add it over here.
36.
Oh, look at
No, but yeah.
that. Look at
Yeah.
that, right?
36.
No, it'll be positive 36.
It'd be 36.
It'll be positive 36.
Yeah,
Yeah. Equals positive 36, right? Yeah? Good? Makes sense? Do we see how this works? Okay? And now, look at this step that we're at, right? This is the step, okay? So step number 2 was find C and add it to both sides. Okay? Step number 4 was break it down.
Wait, are we on step number 3?
Step number 3 was break down. And then step number 4 was the square root property. Okay? So we're breaking things down like the x plus 5, and now we're doing the square root property. Good? The square root property, which was like we did in example 1 and example 2. Now, to solve for x, we take the square root, right? What's the square root of x plus 5 squared?
It's just
Just x plus 5. What's the square root of 36?
positive and negative 30.
Positive and negative 6. Make sure you put plus and minus because we put the square root in there. Always plus and minus, yeah? Always plus and minus. Okay, now, last thing.
Subtract 5.
I subtract 5 and I subtract 5 and I have two answers, right? It's positive 6 minus 5 and negative 6 minus 5.
So it'd be negative 1 and positive 1.
It'd be
Positive 1
positive 1
and negative
and negative 11.
Oh yeah.
And those two places are where he crosses, right? Those two places are where he crosses, okay? We're going to do one more example.
Oh, yikes.
One more example.
Which one? 5?
And not the first example 5 because I have them both as example 5s. We're going to do the second example 5.
Which one? Example 5 or example 5?
Example 5 or example 5, right?
Alright, I'm good.
Okay.
Well, now I understand
All
why
right.
people
So,
read in my right
second
one,
example
alright.
5. Step number 1. What's step number 1?
Move the 22.
Move the 22 over. I'm going to subtract 22, subtract 22. So I do x squared plus 8x, and we leave some space. My older kids, I always tell them completing the square is like completing the blank, because what I will do a lot of times is I'll put a plus blank here, and then I'll do minus 222 plus blank. And by putting a blank on both sides, that prevents me from forgetting to add the number to the other side, right? If I do a plus blank on both sides, I won't forget. Okay, so we do that, and then we forget. And then I have to find the C, right?
4.
So I don't know what C is, but I do know that it has to multiply to get that number, and I have to add to get 8, right? So 8 could be 1 and 7 or 2 and 6, but I want 2 4s, right? I want the same number. So I have to have x plus 4 and x plus 4 so that I can write it as x plus 4 squared. And then I had somebody said 16. That's what I'm adding to both sides, right? Add 16, add
Equals
16.
negative 6.
It's negative 22 plus 16. So this is negative 6. Okay, now we're going to run into an issue here a little bit.
Oh, imaginary
A little bit.
number.
Yeah, okay. So now we're just solving the thing, right? We've added the number to both sides. We've broken them down, done all that stuff. We take the square root and we take the square root, right? And x plus 4 just falls out of there. But what's the square root of negative 6?
6i. The square plus or minus the square root of 6i.
Plus or minus the square root of 6i. If you want to put the I on the end, I don't care. Or you can put the I in front of the square root of 6, I don't care. But the I is the negative part that's coming out, right? The I is the negative part. All right, then last thing,
Subtract 4.
I subtract 4. I subtract 4. Okay, can you subtract the 4 from the 6?
No.
No. How do you write your answer?
Negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 6i.
6i. That's what he looks like. Okay?
Well, you could put
All of that
negative
stuff.
6 or
Now,
6i.
hold on just a second. What were we just solving?
Imaginary.
We were trying to solve for the what?
X.
This guy finds me the zeros or the x-intercepts, right? But if the x-intercepts are imaginary,
Then it doesn't hit. Does it not hit?
then it has no x-intercepts.
It's a parabola that goes down.
It's either a parabola that looks like this or a parabola that looks like this, right? Now, which one is it? Is it a smiley face or a frowny face?
Smiley face.
It's going to be a smiley face one because it's pointing up, right? So it's going to be one of those where it's not touching. Does that make sense? That's why we get an I, right? Yes? Okay? All right? Woo, that's lots of stuff. Lots of steps, but not hard, right?
No.
Not
want us
lots
to
of
leave
steps,
it?
but not hard. What?
Do you want us to leave it as that, or do you want us to write no solution?
Go ahead and leave it as that. Yeah, go ahead and leave it as that.
Are Riley and Michael in there?
Yes, they are.
Could they come to the office for a minute? please?
Sure. Nobody else?
Riley, what?
I did it.
You did it? All right. Good. Can you go too? No. Okay, so in the 6th period class, we,
Oh.
no,
Where's the smart people?
I'm just saying, I gave them a little bit of a head start in the 6th period class, so I can give you a head start if you'd like to. There are 12 problems here, and there's like 3 sections of 4. We did together 1 from each section. Would you like to do that?
Hang on.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay, that's fine. Just to give you a little bit of a head start.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, Sean.
All right. Let's do it. Completing the square. Completing.
Yeah, that would be nice because then I can base it off that.
Right, exactly. That's why I like to do that. Okay, so 1 through 4.
3. Can we do 3?
You want to do 3 together? They did 4 together.
We don't want to be like that.
Yes, let's do 4 together. The other 3 are easy.
Yeah.
How do you know the other 3 are easy? You don't even know that.
Let's do 1.
Let's do 3. Let's do 3.
No, 4.
4.
4? You know why they picked 4? Do you know why they picked 4? Because the square root of 1 comes out nicely. It is
1.
plus and minus 1. The square root of 25 comes out nicely. It is
5.
plus and minus 5. The square root of 9 comes out nicely. It is plus and minus 3. But what about this one?
Oh.
Comes out pretty
That's
easy.
what I said. 4.
You said 3, you silly.
4.
I
Okay,
said
okay, you said 3. All right, anyway. Okay, number 4. We're just doing the breaking down the square root property stuff, okay? So we're going to break them down. And this is a simple trinomial, right? Simple trinomial. We want a number that will multiply to give me 1, but when I add them, give me negative 2. And I want the same number.
X plus 1, X plus 1.
X minus 1, X minus 1, right? Yeah, that's what I want. Equals 5. Okay.
Do I have
Then,
to X minus
I don't care.
one?
That's fine. You can go to the next step if you want to. Yep. If you want to skip that step and go straight to x minus 1 squared, you sure can, right? That's what he looks like after that. Okay, and then what do?
We square root it.
We square root it, and we square root it. And so we have x minus 1 is equal to
The square root of the positive and negative.
plus and minus square root of 5, yeah.
Add 1.
Okay, and then
Add 1.
add 1. Can you add the 1 to the 5?
No.
No. So your answer looks like?
X equals 1 plus or and minus negative the square root of 5.
Yes, correct. Correct.
Wait, what?
Why would
Was
I
that too
solve-
fast?
Yeah.
That was really fast?
It was.
Yeah, it's not too bad. That was really
Really
fast.
fast. I couldn't even.
I went really fast.
I think you went the perfect speed.
Shut up,
but-
Reese.
All right.
You're back there.
That's true.
Does this make sense, Isaac Mackin?
That one did, but the other ones don't.
What other ones
This
don't?
one was most confusing because they went so fast.
Yeah, I think we should do another one because we went so fast.
Do you want me to back up and start over, Carson?
No,
Could you go for a different one?
No, I'm not going to do your
one from
homework
each
for you.
section.
How about let's go to the next section? Do you want time to do those other ones?
No.
No, just move on to the next chunk?
Yeah.
Sure, let's move on to the next chunk, okay?
Hold on,
And then if-
All right, now, you pick, but I'm going to tell you one of these is way harder than the others, like way harder. Which one's the hardest one out of 5, 6, 7, 8?
Number 8. Just kidding.
It looks like number 6.
6.
7. 5.
There's a reason why it's harder.
6 because
Than the
I got
others.
Minus.
Nah, we don't care about
7.
minuses.
7. I have no idea.
Which one's harder though?
Wait,
Which
is
one's
it
the
8?
hardest one? The whole process of what you're trying to do is you're trying to find like a number that when you multiply together gives you this one, but when you add them gives you this number, right?
It's number 8. It's number 8.
So why is number 8 harder?
Because
2.5,
there's no two same numbers.
It's going to be a decimal, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
the number that adds to itself, that's the only odd number that you have, right? So let's do number 8 together, okay?
I
So
told you, number 8.
you didn't know.
made a
You
guess.
didn't even know. All right, so Carson, quit talking and write because we're going to go fast here. So I'm going to break this down into 2 pieces, right? So that eventually I can write it like this, right? And I don't know what C is, but I do know that I want to multiply to get C, but when I add them, give me 5, right? So what number do you add to itself to give you 5?
2.5.
2.5, okay? So I've got x plus 2.5 and x plus 2.5, which is kind of a yucky deal, okay? 2.5, 2.5, yeah? So I can write that as x plus 2.5 squared, and that's one of my answers, but what is C going to be then?
6.25.
How did you get 6.25?
You squared it.
2.5 squared.
You betcha, 6.25. Awesome.
Wait, why?
Does that make sense?
Why is it 6.25?
Because C is the number that you multiply together to get. So
Is this-
2.5 times 2.5 is 6.25.
Is this the part where
Does
we
that make sense?
Yeah.
Is
yeah.
this the part where we need to only find C and then the
Yep, you're only finding C and you're only breaking it down. So those 2 things that I've circled, that's what they want.
Wait, you're only finding.
Wait, so you're only finding those 2?
you're only finding C in the perfect square.
Yeah,
so
you're
easy.
not actually
Yeah.
solving for anything. Yep.
Can
Yep.
I use the restroom when we're done?
Sure. Well, we're gonna do one in the bottom section. So if you want to be there for that, that's fine. Otherwise, you can go. I don't care. Okay. All right. Do you want to choose one in the bottom section?
So I can use the restroom?
Is
Yes.
there one harder than the others?
You know, I don't know. Probably not.
Can we do number
9?
9? Yeah.
9. 9 does come out weird.
Okay, then good thing we chose 9.
9 comes out weird. I like 9. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Step number 1.
You
Minus
get
36.
Minus the 36 to the other side. So x squared minus 12x. I put plus blank equals negative 36 plus blank. Completing the squares like completing the blank. I put the blanks in there so I don't forget to put them in there, right?
Negative 6
Okay?
is for the
Yeah, yeah. We'll wait. Carson's still writing. We'll go slow,
You
Carson.
should see Amit in social studies, dude.
Oh my goodness.
Hey! How
No.
bad is that? I
But he's also a foreigner, so
no,
he's
also writes in
slow.
Turkey.
So Carson, really though, what's your
Carson's
excuse?
not
I
the-
don't have a
Carson's
car.
not the fastest
I'm also a
writer,
foreigner.
but Carson waits like 5 minutes for
Oh, you think he's slow too?
So it'd
And
be
you're a
x
foreigner.
minus 6 and x minus 6.
What do
Who?
you mean, dude? You're supposed to be in the 12th grade.
Okay, Carson, are you writing this down? Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I don't know what C is, but I know that I want to multiply to get C, but when I add them, give me negative 12. Hold on. Oh, just shush.
Oh, I've said it 3 times.
Negative 6 and negative 6.
Oh my goodness.
Negative 6, negative 6. All right. So, do you need
It's
one of these,
36.
you two boys?
36.
Do you need one? I didn't give you one.
What's right if
Did I give you one?
What's right if you want?
Hey, it's 36.
You are just so awesome. There you go, Carson. You got it. You got it. Okay? All right. So, x minus 6, x minus 6, x minus 6 squared. There we go.
And then 6 times 6 is 36.
36. Okay, hold up.
It's negative
Question.
36.
Once again, there will be open gym for basketball in the elementary gym after school today.
Okay.
If you had a second order on the playoff shirts, those are in Mr. Arms' room. You can stop in Mr. Arms and pick those up.
Can I go there?
Just wait.
FFA
We're almost
print
done.
sales are due tomorrow. Those forms can be turned in here to the office. The Halloween costume contest is tomorrow. Grades 7 through 12 and staff are encouraged to wear a costume. Cost is $2 or a food item listed on the flyer.
When do boys
posted
leave?
around
When do
the
you boys
school.
leave?
Proceeds will go
What?
to the backpack.
I'm wearing my vlog right now.
Prizes will be awarded for grade level.
You leave at 12:15, so are you getting dismissed for lunch early? Or are you getting dismissed for lunch at 12:15?
I don't know.
I don't even
No, because lunch tomorrow is at 11:30 anyway. So you'll go to lunch and then you'll leave right after that. Okay, got it. So right after lunch.
Are we getting lunch on the bus?
Yeah.
That's for like
After the game.
after the game.
Yeah.
Glad to get some
I
good
think
food.
that's what I say.
That's what we got.
Yeah, I'm gonna
covered.
do it to pay for it.
And you
I
get like
did.
dinner. You
You have to pay for it.
I did.
Okay, anyway, almost done. Let's keep it going. Now, my question to you is this.
It's
So
back
we
to
said
zero.
negative 6, negative 6. Is that positive 36 or negative 36?
Positive and minus.
It's
Zero.
positive 36 when we put it in the blank, right? Will your C value always be positive?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I told
Yes.
you. I said yes.
Because when you square it, it's always going to be positive. So this number will always be positive when you're adding it,
It's
right?
0 on the end, though.
Okay, now here's the deal. Negative 36 plus 36? 0, right? That's kind of weird. Okay, so let's keep going. We're fine. Take the square root, take the square root, right? X minus 6 equals plus and minus, what's the square root of 0?
0.
0. Okay?
We don't really need
But there
to
is no
know
So,
that.
hold on, just wait a second. Okay? So we're going to add the 6 to the other side, right? So we really have two answers, kind of. We have positive 0 plus 6, and we have negative 0 plus 6, right?
So it'd be negative 6 and positive 6.
Nope. What's positive 0 plus 6?
6.
6. What's negative 0 plus 6? Also 6. So I get the same answer,
It's a straight line.
right? No, it's not a straight line. It's still a parabola. But what's happening? It only has one place where he's touching,
Oh.
and that's the vertex, right? It's touching over here at 6, and he's doing one of those. He's not crossing and going back up. He only has one place because it's the same number, right? That's what he looks like. All right. So use your time. You've still got like 7-ish minutes or something like that. You've got